Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
This is non-negotiable for us. I would stake our government on it. Those 10,000 jobs, the prosperity for British Columbians.
Premier David Eby not ruling out an early election if a bill to fast-track construction of power lines in northwestern BC fails in the legislature. Plus,
people are just saying, well, nobody told us. You know, people have no idea what's going on.
Confusion and anger as hundreds of Richmond residents gather to express their concern over a recent court decision involving the Cowichan Nation. And
team utilized investigative genetic genealogy and employed other investigative techniques to identify a suspect.
A BC man is facing charges in connection to 4 violent sex assaults that happened in Ontario nearly 30 years ago.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. Today at the BC Legislature, Premier David Eby did not rule out calling an early election if the government's bill to fast-track the North Coast transmission line fails. Bill 31 was introduced last week and would allow quicker construction of critical energy projects for the province. I spoke with the CBC's Katie DeRosa in Victoria earlier.
Well, you know, BC Conservative leader John Rustad has been saying over and over he thinks Premier David Eby is going to call an early election. There's been some speculation because of the troubles that the BC Conservatives have had with losing 5 MLAs since last year's election. But today, Premier David Eby stopped in the hallways to do a scrum with reporters about the government's attempt to pass the bill to support the North Coast transmission line. Yesterday in the legislature, the BC Conservatives tried to put forward a hoist motion, which would essentially delay the bill by 6 months. That failed, but the Premier capitalized on he called it a political stunt. He says it's evidence that the BC Conservatives don't support 10,000 jobs, and he says that the public needs this bill, and he's willing to stake his government on it, and did not rule out an election call. So here's what he had to say.
This is non-negotiable for us. I would stake our government on it. Those 10,000 jobs, the prosperity for British Columbians. The last thing I want is an election, but we'll be prepared if it's necessary.
So, Katie, what did the opposition parties have to say?
Well, first of all, we talked to the BC Greens because the Premier indicated the BC Greens are not going to support this bill. We actually just had a vote a few minutes ago on second reading on this bill. The Greens did support it, but Jeremy Valeriat said there's parts of the bill the Greens don't agree with, and they're going to try to get changes at committee stage. So no guarantees the Greens will support this. But as for staking the election call on this bill, the BC Greens and Jeremy Valeriat are calling foul, and here's what he had to say.
If the Premier wants to call an election, I think it'll be for other reasons than Bill 31, and you know, he's welcome to use that as an excuse if he wants.
Why wait for that? Go to the polls and ask for your permission. We'll see what the public think about the way he's handled private property rights, how he's handling healthcare crisis, how he's handling the drugs and crime, how the fact that our forest sector is in shambles, how the fact that their entire economy, quite frankly, is in shambles.
That's Katie DeRosa reporting in Victoria. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Janella.
The City of Richmond held an information session last night to discuss concerns over land ownership in the aftermath of a recent court decision. In August, a judge granted the Cowichan First Nation fishing rights on the Fraser River and title to a parcel of land. As Georgie Smythe reports, there was a large turnout at the meeting and strong emotions.
People at this information session heard a bit more background of a BC Supreme Court decision handed down in August. There were lots of questions and anger shared among hundreds of residents. It comes about 12 weeks after the Supreme Court declared that Cowichan tribes, a group of First Nations from Vancouver Island, has Aboriginal title rights to about 7.5 square kilometres of land in Richmond beside the Fraser River. As part of their petition to the court, Cowichan tribes were seeking a declaration that the land titles in this area that are held by the federal government and the City of Richmond are defective and invalid. The court agreed and went further, awarding Aboriginal title to other privately held fee simple lands. Cowichan has said that their claim was never about challenging privately owned land, but opponents say the court's decision fundamentally challenges the security of BC's land title system by overturning the indefeasibility of fee simple land titles. Roland Holger's son lives in the claim area.
People are just saying, well, nobody told us. People have no idea what's going on until they got that letter. If you didn't see the news, you only became aware of it with a letter.
The judge has suspended their declaration for 18 months and all parties have appealed the decision. The next stop for this case is likely to be the BC Supreme Court of Appeal. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Richmond, BC.
An explosive device was used to break down a power line over the ocean on the Sunshine Coast. As Alana Kelly explains, it took a crew of 60 people and lots of planning to remove the aging power line that provides electricity to a remote part of the province.
Off with a bang and a splash. A power line spanning 3 kilometers over the ocean explodes and plummets into the water.
The line is severed on one side using controlled detonation. It's allowed to fall into the water below, and then we collect it with a barge and remove it from site.
It is one of 2 lines in Jervis Inlet, supplying electricity to all of Powell River, Cortes Island, and Texada Island, roughly 10,000 homes.
This is really fascinating. When the line was installed in the 60s, it was the longest overwater transmission line crossing in the world.
The lines were aging and corroding. Marker balls were even falling off.
We wanted to get it down before winter, before any failure happened.
A rich marine ecosystem is below the lines, home to whales, dolphins, and fish.
We had 2 pods of humpback whales that were visiting the site daily, and there were several times that we had to delay the work.
One expert in marine mammal toxicology who studies the effects of environmental contaminants says it's important that they stopped the work for the whales.
They are very sensitive to what we call acoustic pollution. And acoustic pollution is noise underwater, and that can really affect marine mammals.
Noise is the main stressor that can impact the welfare of humpback whales.
For them are more difficult to see where the noise is coming from, and they can be disoriented, right? And that can cause stranding sometimes.
The mayor of Powell River says the new power line will meet the needs for the growing community.
It's planning for the future. There's a lot more young families coming up to Powell River, a whole set of people that are much more used to Zooming, Teams, and everything else, and the technology, and a lot more jobs are going to be technology-based.
A new power line will be installed by 2027 across Jervis Inlet, with increased electricity capacity for the communities. The other line will continue providing electricity in the meantime. Alana Kelly, CBC News, Squamish.
Ontario Provincial Police say a BC man has been charged in connection with a series of violent sexual assaults. They happened nearly 3 decades ago across southwestern Ontario. Marie Seidler reports.
It's a pursuit that has spanned provinces and decades. Now, Ontario Provincial Police say Jason Timothy Davidson was arrested on Sunday here in Campbell River. The 52-year-old is facing 15 charges, including aggravated sexual assault, kidnapping, forcible confinement, and uttering threats. That's in relation to a series of violent sexual assaults that happened in 1997 across southwestern Ontario. Police say 3 of the 4 victims were minors at the time. OPP Detective Inspector Michael Moore.
This arrest marks a major breakthrough in a decades-old investigation made possible through advancements in DNA technology and by the tireless dedication of police and our partners.
Investigators say DNA evidence linked the attacks to one suspect, and in 2024, new forensic techniques helped police finally identify that person.
Our team utilized investigative genetic genealogy and employed other investigative techniques to identify a suspect, an individual living in British Columbia.
Police say the arrest was made with the help of officers across several provinces. Davidson has been sent to Ontario, where he remains in custody.
The major crime unit was brought in by the OPP, so they helped deal with tracking down the individual and assisted with the arrest. And then the individual was remanded here shortly for a short time before being transported to Ontario.
The OPP says sticking with the case reinforces its commitment to delivering answers and supporting victims.
I can tell you, having been a police officer since 2009, is probably one of the most rewarding moments in my career, being able to let these survivors know after 28 long years of enduring, the suffering that they've had to go through. I can't even begin to imagine. But being able to tell them that we got him was a very big moment.
Police say Davidson is originally from southwestern Ontario. They say he moved to Campbell River in 2017. His next court date is scheduled for November 7th. Marie Seidler, CBC News, Campbell River.
Thousands of people in Jamaica packed into shelters today after Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm that wreaked havoc in the Caribbean. CBC reached out to a Kelowna resident who is on vacation in Montego Bay.
So this is the courtyard from our room, and just going to scan for a little bit. You can see the white stuff on the ground is tile from the ceiling. Palm tree in front. That must have been nasty. All the palms, all the top, you can see they're just like sticks now. Most of them are just sticks. Shielded by the building, they might have kept some of their branches, but it was just white, just straight across, and that was the rain just going across, and it just sheets of water, and just see the force of it. It was probably the scariest I've ever been in my life, knowing that if I walked out those doors and 20 steps further, I would be gone. I'd be blown away, and who knows where my body would end up. It was just that strong of a force.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at our weather. Darius.
We've had a pretty dry day today across the south coast. We have more moisture coming in for Friday, but another dry day tomorrow with some more blue sky. A little bit of moisture feeding into some areas that have led to some showers and scattered flurries in some parts of the interior. But overall, most places seeing plenty of blue sky today with more on the way. Our wind warnings have also dropped since yesterday. They dropped in the overnight hours, most of them. A little bit of strong wind happening up by Haida Gwaii, but really calm here on the south coast. That'll change as we get into Friday as well, as we see that heavy precipitation move in. More later in the show.
All right. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate by 25 basis points for the second month in a row. It now stands at 2.25%. That's the lowest it's been since July of 2022. But as Anis Haydari reports, it's not likely to drop any lower anytime soon.
Go Jays.
Go Jays.
Yes, go Jays. Thank you all.
The Toronto Blue Jays are looking up, but interest rates are down, now 2.25%, a 25 basis point cut. It could be the last cut for a while.
I hope our message is fairly clear today that, with this cut and based on this outlook, we think the current policy rate is about right. But we recognize there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
The trade war with the U.S. is damaging the Canadian economy, says the central bank. Lowering rates can't fix that, but could help. Lower interest rates make borrowing and business investments cheaper, but go too low and inflation can spike.
That's actually why they kind of went to said we're comfortable with where levels are today. In regards to lower interest rates in the Bank of Canada, inflation is the biggest risk. And by no means are we out of the hairs or the target of inflation.
Recent inflation numbers were a bit higher than the 2% target, but for now, the bank says it could stay under control. And as tariffs slam some sectors, economic growth could be weak this coming year. So while it's not getting worse by some measures, the bank is cutting rates since the economy may feel sluggish.
And it's kind of akin to driving along the 401 at 75 kilometers an hour, right? You're going forward, you're not in recession and going backwards, but you're getting past on the left and the right, and you don't feel like you're really moving like you should be.
U.S. tariffs have Canada changing who it trades with. The Bank of Canada may not have tools to make that easier.
Interest rates don't really have a big impact, but fiscal policy and capital spending and investment priorities probably do.
Those spending decisions and priorities could come up in the federal budget next week. Anis Haydari, CBC News, Calgary.
Community members continue to heal after the Lapu Lapu Festival tragedy. After the break, we meet two people hoping to find solace through art. "11 giant industrial tires have washed up on the beach near Campbell River. A local conservation group says it's worried about the impact the tires could have on wildlife. But as Maurice Zeidler tells us, getting rid of them will not be easy.
Keely Dodds is trying to figure out how to get rid of the tires. She's the stewardship coordinator of a small nonprofit called the Greenways Land Trust.
These tires are concerning because, first of all, they're huge and so they can impact the shoreline. But also there's a lot of styrofoam and some other foam that's inside the tires.
Dodd says these tires were likely part of a dock that broke away during a storm. The styrofoam helps keep them afloat, but that's concerning because the big chunks can quickly turn into much smaller pieces, and birds and fish could eat them.
You don't know if they're ingesting all these plastics, and then that's just going to accumulate over time and be really harmful to them.
And then there are all the chemicals that could leach from the tires.
Where we get concerned about
chemicals that may be released from these tires, such as 6-PPD and its breakdown product, 6-PPD quinone, which is acutely lethal to coho salmon in particular.
Getting rid of the tires won't be easy. A record number of volunteers have already cleaned up about 430 kilos of styrofoam, but moving these 4-ton giants is another matter. Last December, 3 tires just like these washed ashore in Campbell River. It took 7 months to find a way to move them.
We're not quite sure the best way to approach things, just because they're quite far down any access to the beach. It's all kind of private residences back here and no great places to get in.
The regional district says the shoreline is the province's responsibility. The province says local efforts are already underway to remove the debris.
Everything we do is based off of funding from grants that we receive, and we aren't actually really in the business of beach cleanups typically.
This conservationist says more needs to be done to hold polluters accountable.
Someone knows where these came from. Somebody should be held to account with regards to cleaning them up.
The Land Trust says it hopes to find a solution before the tires cause any serious damage, as well as funding to help put that plan into action. Marie Seidler, CBC News, Campbell River.
A local Filipino artist and the surviving family member of 3 victims of the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival attack is bringing those affected by the tragedy together through art. Take a look.
This is my masterpiece. It's the toucan from Colombia. You literally get so lost in the art, in the the strokes of the paint, the colors, that you sort of forget what you're going through. The main goal is to bring the communities together and heal together. So this will be one of many different workshops and events that we'll be hosting.
When my friend were brainstorming about this event, it all comes from this. I believe art has a way of healing. It's at least for a short moment, there's a diversion for all these victims to have a breathing space. Here are the works of the victims, the family of the victims, the survivors. So isn't it amazing?
None of them are artists. None of us have done this before, but we all had such a good time just being with each other, laughing and just focusing on painting.
There's a connection for each one of the people partaking in that session. I learned to know them, where they come from, and it's really a release.
And that's the beauty of art. You don't need to be an artist to paint. It's just a way of coping with pain, just taking a break from the grief, just getting lost in art.
The day that was in scenic Deep Cove, a bit of sun peeking through the clouds, but mostly a day of dry weather. Darius will have your full BC-wide weather forecast next. It's been hailed as a historic moment in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. A drug to slow down the early stages of the condition has now been approved for use in Canada. Dr. Robin Shung is a professor and neurologist and works here in the Lower Mainland. He's also been involved in the trials for the drug lecanemab, and he joins us now. Dr. Shung, this drug has already been approved in more than 50 other countries. What kind of results are doctors and patients seeing?
Well, we're seeing some slowdown of the progress of the disease. And as you said already, all the previous treatments are only for symptomatic treatment, so it helps with the symptoms, but it doesn't slow the disease process. But now we have proof with biomarkers. Those are the biological measures of the changes in the brain. It shows that we are actually slowing down the disease. So this is very exciting.
And how exactly does the drug work to slow down the disease of Alzheimer's?
So in Alzheimer's, there are two main pathology. One is called amyloid plaques, and the other one is called tau, neurofibrillary tangles. And based on all the genetic studies that looks at Alzheimer's, there's excessive production of amyloid. And based on these hypotheses, the drug removes the excessive amyloid in the brain, and it seems to slow down the disease. However, it doesn't stop the disease process. So even though we're slowing down, something else is still going on, and people still decline. But based on the biomarkers like the brain scan and the blood test and the biomarker test, there does seem to be a decrease of the level of these abnormal proteins in the brain. So we think it's actually changing the disease mechanism.
And are there any side effects to this drug?
Yes, so everything has a side effect. And what we have known is that approximately 10% of these people develop what we called ARIA, stands for amyloid-related imaging abnormalities. And most of the times people don't feel anything, but we see them in the brain scan, mainly MRI scans. But some people do feel symptomatic, for instance, headaches. And for more serious problems, it can be a seizure or a stroke-like episode, like suddenly having speech problems or weakness. So we have to be very careful when we use these medications.
Now, really briefly, doctor, there's concerns this drug may not be accessible to everyone. In the U.S., for example, this treatment costs about $26,000 per year. Does that concern you at all? What do you want to see be done for that coverage?
Well, we hope that the company will make it cheaper, but just like any new medications, there is a significant cost because of the research. But hopefully, when more and more companies are working on this mechanism, there will be competition and lower the price in the future. I see these treatments as a neurologist, as in multiple sclerosis and other cancer or brain tumors. Initially, the new treatments are quite expensive, but when there are better medications coming out with competition, the price will come down and hopefully it can be more accessible in the future.
Yes, because it can be very life-changing. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Robin Shung, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
The union representing striking District of Squamish employees says a tentative agreement has been reached. But CUPE Local 2269 says the picket lines will remain in place until both parties ratify the deal. After a nearly 2-week-long lockout, the tentative agreement was reached with the help of a mediator. Details of the deal will not be released until it's been presented to members. The union represents maintenance and bylaw employees as well as administrative workers who support the Squamish RCMP. Schools are back in session across Alberta. It's the first day of classes since the province's 51,000 teachers walked off the job on October 6th. Premier Danielle Smith's government invoked the notwithstanding clause to force them back to class, but some parents are conflicted about the return. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains why.
Calgary mom Jacqueline Renfrew is glad her kids are heading back to class, but not so happy that one of the key issues behind the teachers' strike will likely remain unresolved: large class sizes.
For my 9-year-old, she's in grade 4 now. At the end of grade 2, we ended up having to get a tutor for her, and we went a full year round because she just wasn't getting the support in the classroom.
Class size was one of the key issues to stay unresolved after the Saskatchewan teachers' strike last year. And in Ontario, a survey of elementary teachers by their union identified class size as the key issue to tackle in the upcoming collective bargaining. Ontario grade 1 to 3 classes are currently limited to 20 students per class, but there are no hard caps for grades 4 and beyond.
It's unbelievably important. We have stories of classes in the mid to upper 30s of 13 and 14-year-olds. It's really not a sustainable environment. It's not one, especially with the very diverse needs that kids have these days.
Research says smaller classes mostly benefit the youngest grades, but it may affect the experience of older students too, says this professor.
As class sizes go up, then teachers are going to go back to the worksheets, read the textbook, cut out the hands-on activity. Won't really have students working together in groups.
Still, provincial governments like Alberta's are leery to agree to caps because it's a big expense, a commitment to keep hiring teachers over and over to keep the caps in place. This former Deputy Education Minister for Nova Scotia, who also worked in Ontario, says we need to reevaluate priorities.
The work can't be focused on dollars, and it can't be focused on which side wins. It needs to be focused on how do the kids today need our schools to be different.
She says schools can ease the burden in other ways too, hiring more specialists like therapists and social workers to manage behavioral challenges in class and train teachers. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
It's another big night for the Toronto Blue Jays. Game 5 of the World Series is taking place in Los Angeles with the teams tied at 2 wins each. But if you think the Dodgers have an advantage playing in front of a hometown crowd, think again. Jamie Strachan has the story.
Hit well. For Canadians living in California, and this one will go. It's a great time to be a Blue Jay fan.
So I live in San Francisco right now, so I've been tracking the Jays since they're doing well, over the years. And so as soon as there was an opportunity to come down here, I bought a ticket and I'm here.
In the air to left field. And there's been lots to cheer about. They get a great team effort.
I'm losing my voice right now after last night.
Amazing 6. Jays in 6. Jays in 6. Not quite the Rogers Center, but Blue Jays fans well represented.
Tons, yeah. In our section, there was a lot of fanfare and a lot of support. We had some friends in the crowd, so it was all good.
And the Blue Jay hats and jerseys sprinkled throughout Dodger Stadium haven't gone unnoticed.
Just really cool to see that, and we appreciate the support.
For sure makes a difference, having people in the stands behind us, supporting us, and hearing those Blue Jays chants are great.
About 70,000 Canadians live here in California, the most of any U.S. state. For those not lucky enough to have a ticket, this West Hollywood restaurant has become the de facto headquarters for expat Blue Jay fans.
Let's go! Let's go!
It just picked up, and last night we had a nice big crowd, beautiful game, nice ending.
Owner Gianni DeFazio moved to LA in the early 90s. He says word is spreading that there's a spot in LA for Blue Jay fans to enjoy this World Series run.
My brother-in-law and I were both from Montreal, so they're learning that we're Canadian, so we're starting to develop a beautiful Canadian crowd.
The restaurant has been busy for games with a special Canadian-themed menu in place, designed to give fans a taste of Canada.
Smoked meat sandwiches, poutine, moosehead beer, so make all the Canadians feel at home.
Next up on the menu, hopefully another Blue Jay win. A chance for Canadians living here in California to proudly wear their Blue Jay colors. That's COLOURS. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Prime Minister Mark Carney spent the day in South Korea as he continues his trip through Asia to promote new trade partnerships. But it seems he can't escape the ire of U.S. President Donald Trump over an Ontario government ad that used clips of a former Republican president saying tariffs don't work. A TV ad that led to the breakdown of trade talks with the Americans. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
Thousands of kilometers away from D.C., hard to escape the White House's pull. Mark Carney said he had no intention of interacting with the U.S. president in South Korea.
You have a message for President Trump, sir? I have a message for this president.
Trump also presenting a cold shoulder on social media, posting, "For those that are asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada." But the two men ended up right across the table from each other at this dinner hosted by South Korea. Carney had little to say about how it went down.
Very good. I had a very good conversation with all the presidents.
When someone says, the first sign of a thaw after the White House halted trade talks last week, saying it's unhappy over a now pulled Government of Ontario ad showing part of a speech by former President Ronald Reagan criticizing the use of tariffs. The U.S. ambassador to Canada even insulted Ontario's trade representative in an expletive-laden tirade at a Canadian-American Business Council gathering in Ottawa Monday.
Pete, you got to call Dave up and apologize. It's simple. The intention wasn't to go poke the president in the eye. My intention was to get a conversation going.
Both Trump and Carney are also set for some one-on-ones with Chinese President Xi Jinping, aiming to restart their country's relationships with Asia's largest economy. For years, Ottawa and Beijing have not seen eye to eye. China accused of interfering in Canadian elections. Like the U.S., Canada placed punishing tariffs on Chinese electronic vehicle imports last year. Beijing struck back with their own on Canadian canola and pork, saying it would lift them if Ottawa drops its EV levies.
That dialogue has to become with razor-sharp eye open to view.
Observers say Ottawa should tread carefully.
China does not view its foreign policy tools the way that we may view our foreign policy tools. And the second that it feels that it needs to leverage any of those economic tools again, it absolutely will.
And there's Ottawa's business with South Korea itself. While he's here, Carney will visit the Hanwha shipyards on Thursday. Should Seoul win out on a multi-billion-dollar contract against Germany and Norway, that's where the Canadian Navy's next fleet of submarines would be built, cementing a budding trade and defense relationship with a new partner at a time the one with Washington is still on shaky grounds. Rafi Boudjikanian on CBC News, Gwangju.
The Gaza Health Ministry say a new round of Israeli strikes have killed more than 100 people. It marks the deadliest day in the territory since the ceasefire began on October 10th. And it comes as both Hamas and Israel trade blame for truce violations. Julia Chapman has the latest.
The strikes targeted areas all across the Gaza Strip. The civil defense in Gaza says homes, temporary shelters, and an area near a hospital were all hit. And it was one of Israel's deadliest attacks on Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says 20 women and 46 children were among the 104 killed. In one strike on the Barej refugee camp in central Gaza, the office of Benjamin Netanyahu says the prime minister ordered forceful strikes. The Israel Defense Forces says they were targeting Hamas sites and that this was a retaliation for ceasefire violations, including the killing of an Israeli soldier. Hamas has denied any involvement. The handing over of hostage bodies is also still a sticking point. Hamas says it's taking time to recover them because of the damage inside Gaza. Israel accuses Hamas of not holding up its end of the deal. And after last night's strikes, Hamas says it's postponing the return of one body. There are still arguments about another body that was handed over. Israel accuses Hamas of staging an excavation, while the group says that Israel is trying to come up with a pretext for further strikes. Donald Trump insists that the ceasefire isn't at risk. He, in fact, endorsed Israel's response when asked about it on Air Force One earlier.
They killed an Israeli soldier, so the Israelis hit back. And
and they should hit back.
Trump went on to say that Hamas should behave, and if they don't, they will be terminated. But there are other hiccups in the peace deal as well. The IDF says after last night's strikes, it is upholding the ceasefire once again, and Hamas also says it is still committed to it, but it remains extremely fragile. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
The federal government is advising Canadians to avoid traveling to certain parts of the Caribbean as Hurricane Melissa rips through the region. The latest on the storm and the devastation it's caused when we return. Hurricane Melissa continues its trail of destruction through the Caribbean, headed next for the Bahamas. It made landfall today in Cuba as a Category 3 storm. A day earlier, it slammed into Jamaica as the strongest storm recorded to hit the island nation. Katie Nicholson has the latest.
Hurricane Melissa's path of destruction clear in Jamaica's morning light. Melissa trashed the island with winds that at times gusted 320 kilometers an hour.
It was terrible. The wind, it was violent. It was terrible.
for all of us. I have a son here, and believe me, he was actually crying.
The terror of the storm now over, the unprecedented devastation only just beginning to hit home. An unconfirmed number of deaths, roads blocked by trees and debris. 77% of the country without power after large sections of the grid knocked out, homes ripped apart.
We still have to pick up the pieces and move on.
To that end, multiple countries and organizations are ready to help, including the UN.
I don't think there's any single soul on this island who's not affected by Hurricane Melissa.
The UN estimates roughly 1 million people, a third of the population, will need some form of help.
Some of the areas really remain unreachable in terms of getting resources there. We have serious challenges in terms of connectivity, so we cannot get the reports from those areas.
Melissa went on to hit Cuba next. Rainwater crept up to doors in the dead of night and tore down trees and roofs. While in rain-drenched Haiti, at least 40 people died, many when a river overran its banks. Today, floodwaters linger. I'm living with kids, she says. I have nothing to give them. We wake up in the water, we sleep in the water. Long after Melissa pummeled the Caribbean, the misery from its damage will persist. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
As we heard, when Hurricane Melissa slammed into Jamaica yesterday, it became one of the most powerful Atlantic landfalls ever recorded. CBC's Johanna Wagstaff looks at how this storm may be part of a new hurricane era where they are fueled by a combination of record warm seas and a shifting jet stream.
The Category 5 winds of Hurricane Melissa made direct landfall in western Jamaica Tuesday morning. The storm is still unfolding, but with sustained winds of almost 300 kilometers per hour and a central pressure of 892 millibars, you're looking inside the eye of one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, and one of the most intense to ever make landfall in the Caribbean. Here's what made Melissa so powerful and what the storm says about the future of hurricanes.
Everybody is really mobilized to the maximum. If we are indeed looking at the storm of the century, which we are.
Jamaica took the first and fiercest hit, but as the storm drifts north through Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, it's leaving behind a pattern that scientists have been warning about. Storms that are not just stronger, but slower, lingering over vulnerable terrain. Melissa's eye, where the strongest winds are concentrated, passed just west of Black River Bay, funneling the storm surge several kilometers inland. And in Cuba and Haiti, mountains are amplifying rainfall and landslide risk. In some regions, over 700 millimeters is expected in just a few days. 3 climate factors are helping to explain what's unfolding. First, sea surface temperatures hit nearly 31 degrees Celsius in the Caribbean this week, record warmth that's rapidly fueling the growing storm. Second, a warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture, which is why storms like Harvey and now Melissa end up being remembered not just for their winds, but for the catastrophic flooding that follows. And third, the jet stream. That fast-moving band of air in the upper atmosphere stalled out. A wavier jet stream is a growing area of climate research and can leave storms meandering instead of sweeping through. Melissa's track and pace are part of what made it so destructive, moving at little more than a walking pace. That means hours to unleash torrential rain over steep terrain and low-lying coasts. While its full impact across Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and the wider Caribbean will take time to measure, meteorologists are already calling Hurricane Melissa a case study in a changing hurricane era, where record-breaking storms arrive stronger but stay longer.
The Weather Update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Give today to bring more progress and possibilities to patients and their families. Your donation changes everything.
Darius Madavi is back with another look at our weather. Darius?
Well, I want to start by talking a little bit about the hurricane in the Caribbean. We're watching the last few days here. We can see the really well-defined eye there as it hit Jamaica, Category 5, came out of Category 3, briefly became a Category 4 again, then made landfall just straddling the line between Category 3 and 4 in Cuba, and then continued to move up into the Bahamas, currently sitting at a Category 1 with wind speeds close to 200 wind gusts close to 200 kilometers per hour. Buttons here just giving me a little bit of trouble. But I can talk a little bit more about the hurricane while we wait for this to load in. We've got conditions across, there we go. This is some footage from Cuba earlier today. Widespread flooding, as much as over 500 millimeters of rain in parts of Cuba. We saw similar amounts in Jamaica as well. All that flooding, those strong winds really battering down structures. We heard in places like Jamaica, the roofs being torn off hospitals, off homes. 300 kilometer per hour winds can tear homes from their foundations. This was a really massive storm that the devastation will probably still be felt for quite a while to come. The other thing I wanted to mention is that for Atlantic Canada, we could also start to see some impacts. This graphic shows you hurricane force winds, 50-knot winds, so still very strong, up around 100 kilometers per hour, and tropical storm force winds, easily enough to qualify for a wind warning here in Canada. We're going to see those continue to work their way up here we go. They're going to pass into more cooler waters, and so the hurricane will lose some strength. Sorry, there's a lot of graphics here. Watch this come up. Heavy rain and wind coming to Atlantic Canada, unfortunately arriving just in time for Halloween, which means we're probably going to have a pretty soggy Halloween on both the east and west coasts. Low pressure system not expected to impact the south coast as much, but it will bring some strong winds up to the north and central coast and Haida Gwaii and steer a lot of the moisture coming from across the Pacific right towards the south coast. So expect a soggy and somewhat windy Halloween night this year. Let's take a look at that precipitation. Snow coming for those higher ranges and up in the north, but that bigger wave of precipitation, heavier stuff arrives and comes just in time, unfortunately, for trick-or-treating on the south coast. So be ready for that. Again, those strong winds not expected to be as severe as they could be for the south coast, but we may see them pick up at times. Could see some gusty conditions Halloween night. So just, bundle up. Hopefully your Halloween costume can accommodate a rain jacket or a nice warm hat. Conditions across the province tomorrow don't look too bad at all. Lots of sunshine. It's the calm before the storm, as we can see in our 5-day forecast here. Janella, expect some sunnier conditions, especially tomorrow afternoon, and even some clearing up on Saturday.
All right. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you. We are officially 100 days out from the Winter Olympics in Italy. The opening ceremony for Milano Cortina 2026 is slated for February 6th.
These will be the 4th Olympic Games to be held in Italy. Megan Williams reports from Milan.
Well, the Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics got off to a bumpy start, delays, controversies, but it seems to be pretty smooth sailing right now. The main new hockey rink, which will soon become a concert venue after, that's where the men's hockey will be held, is almost complete here in Milan. There's also a rink for women's hockey. These events are going to take place in Milan, but there are 2 hubs in this Winter Olympics here in Milan and also in Cortina d'Ampezzo, which is an alpine town about 400 kilometers away. This Olympics is the most spread out in Olympic history, over 22,000 kilometers. That's 4 different Italian regions that are hosting this Winter Olympics. In Cortina d'Ampezzo, that's where the bobsled track has been constructed. They weren't even sure if they were going to get that done in time. They were talking about holding it in Lake Placid, but it is done and dusted and even came in under budget. There's also a curling rink, so Canadians can tune in and watch the curling from this beautiful alpine town. Ticket sales are strong, 800,000 sold so far, and the excitement is building here in Milan and across northern Italy. Megan Williams, CBC News, Milan.
Really great footage. Really makes me want to go skiing.
Sure.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website.
I'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Have a good night.